So today we are working on the distributive property. So we are moving on from just combining like terms and adding a little special touch to it. So this is going to be in lesson 3.1, part B, the distributive property. So what I want you to do to start this off is to write down an equation that represents this following statement. You have 4 groups of 3 pencils. How many pencils do you have altogether? So pause the video and write something that represents that situation down and answer the question how many pencils you have altogether. So you could have written a couple of things for 4 groups of 3. So reminder, we have 4 groups of 3 pencils. So to represent 4 groups of 3, you could have written 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3. So there's 4 different 3's there, add them together, and you get 12 as your answer. You could have also written 4 times 3, 4 groups of 3, and that also equals 12. So let's take that concept, because I'm hoping that this was an easier problem for you. So let's take that idea and add some variables to it. So if I told you we had 4 groups of 3x, a situation like this could be something like I have 4 groups of 3 and then some extra stuff that I don't really know what the extra stuff is or how many of that extra stuff I have. So you're doing the same thing that we're doing right over here. Instead of a 3 though, you just have a 3 plus x. And so just treat it the exact same way. So we have 4 groups of 3 plus x. 4 groups of 3 looked like 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3. So this is going to look like 3x plus 3x plus 3x plus 3x. And you get 12 plus 4x because 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3 is 12. And then we have 4 different x's. So when you put those 4 x's together, you get 4x. If we wanted to do multiplication, we're taking 4 times the quantity of 3 plus x, which is also going to give you 12 plus 4x. So let's take what we're seeing right here and use this to do our distributive property, because I don't want to sit there and write all this out and then add up all those numbers. This is a long time. It takes a long time to make this, and so this is going to be a lot easier for you to use and to work with. So using that idea in that form, I want you to answer this question. So after school yesterday, I was really hungry. So I went to McDonald's and ordered 3 combo meals. Each combo meal had 1 hamburger, 1 drink, and 1 order of fries. How many of each item did I order? So thinking back over here and how we set this up, this represented 4 groups of 3 plus x. Try to create an expression or an equation that represents this situation right here. So pause the screen and try it out. And this is an equation that you could have written. So I have 3 different combo meals. So 3 times whatever is going to be in that combo meal. We have 1 hamburger. So technically I could write a 1 right there and it means the same thing. I have 1 hamburger plus a drink plus a fry. Both of those also could have 1s written in front of them. In total, in my bag, I have 3 hamburgers, and I have 3 drinks, and I have 3 orders of fries. And so I've got 3 of each item. So let's take this, and now we're going to apply it to our actual problems. So we are using that idea of the distributive property to solve these two. What we're going to do is I always circle what I'm distributing. So I know that this is a distribution problem because we have parentheses. So I look at my parentheses and then I look at the number out front. So the number out front is a 2, and that 2 is being multiplied by my parentheses. I know that because there's no sign written here. If there was an addition sign written there, you would not be able to do the distributive property with that 2. So we are multiplying that 2 by our parentheses. And we're going to multiply it by every single term that's in the parentheses. So we're taking 2 times a, or we could look at it as 2 times 1a. 2 times 1 is 2, and we still have our a variable. I see an addition sign, so I'm going to write my addition sign. And then I've got 2 times b, or 2 times 1b. 2 times 1 is 2, and we keep our b. I've completed this first problem, and that's going to be our answer. I want you to try out the second problem. So distribute out that 3 to our parentheses. And you should have gotten 6a plus 3b, because 3 times 2 is 6, keep our a. 3 times 1 is 3, and then we keep our b. Let's look at problems that are a little bit harder. So I want you to try, or we're going to work on these problems together first, and then I'm going to give you problems to try after. So let's look at this first problem. So I see some parentheses, so I know that I'm going to have to distribute. Because that 2 is being multiplied by our parentheses, that is going to be the number that I'm distributing. Notice how I grabbed that sign out front. That sign is telling me whether that 2 is positive or negative. In this case, it's a positive 2. If this was a subtraction sign, this would be a negative 2. And so I would have to multiply negative 2 by every number in there. However, since it's a positive 2, we're multiplying positive 2 in this case. 2 times 4 gives me an 8, and then we keep our k, and then we have a subtraction sign. 2 times 1 is 2, and we keep our g. We didn't do anything with this 13g there, so I'm just going to write it down. We don't have a sign right here, so I'm going to think about what my k is right there. Is that k positive or negative? Since it's positive, I'm going to write an addition sign. Now we have to combine our like terms. So I see variables g and k, and I see 2 numbers that have a g. So remember to grab the sign that's out front. So I'm looking at 13g, and then that says, and then minus 2g. When I'm doing this, I'm going to ignore my variables. So I'm going to get rid of them so I can look at the actual problem. We have 13 plus negative 2, which I know is going to give me 11. And we keep our variable of g. We didn't do anything to our positive 8k right there. So that is by itself. It does not change at all. So we just have a positive 8k for our second set of terms. Now all I'm going to do is write this down together. So I've got an 11g plus a positive 8k. And that is my final answer. I want you to try this problem by yourself. I'm going to go through and explain it if you don't understand still, but if you do think that you can do this by yourself, go ahead and try the problem out. So let's go ahead and distribute. I see parentheses right here. The number out front is a 20, and that 20 is being multiplied. So I'm going to multiply it by every term inside of our parentheses. So I've got 20 times 1, so that's going to be 20p. And then I've got an addition sign, so I'm going to write addition. And then I'm taking 20 times 2, which is going to give me a 40. So I've distributed my first set of numbers. I see another set of parentheses right here. That 16 is directly attached to the parentheses through multiplication. So I'm going to multiply it. Notice how I gathered up that sign, so I know that it's a positive 16. So we are adding on to this expression. We're going to take 16 times negative 3. So 16 times 3 is going to be 48. But that 48 is going to be a negative 48 because a negative times a positive is going to be a negative. And then I see a subtraction sign, so I'm going to do subtraction there. And then I'm doing 16 times 1p. So that is going to be a 16p. If I wanted to, I can KCO that to make it a little bit easier for me to see. So kept the negative 48, changed the subtraction to addition, and then did the opposite of a positive 16, which is a negative 16. Now I'm going to be grouping this up by my like terms. So I see a 20p right there, and I see a negative 16p right there. Since those have the same variable, that means that I can put them together. So we are combining 20p and negative 16p. Just like before, I am just focused on my coefficients, that number out front. I don't care about the variable, so I'm going to ignore that variable. And we're taking 20 plus negative 16, which is going to give me a positive 4. And then we tack back on that variable of p. Now we are going to have to combine our other like terms. So I've got a positive 40 right there, and then a plus negative 48 there. So I'm taking 40, a positive 40, plus a negative 48. And I am combining them, so I'm adding them together. Positive 40 plus negative 48 is going to give me a negative 8. Now I'm going to put these two together. So I've got 4p plus negative 8. And that is going to be my final answer. Now it's your turn. Try to simplify these. Make sure that you are aware of any negatives. And if you get a double negative, so it says subtract negative number, make sure that you're KCOing your subtraction, or else you're just going to be really confused at the end. So try out these two problems, give it the best you got, and then check your answer with me after. So this is what you should have been getting on your first equation. So the only thing that might have tripped you up, in my mind at least, is that double negative right there. So I warned you about it. Hopefully you caught it. We had negative 9 times a positive 3, which gave us a negative 27, but we had to rewrite that subtraction sign down too. So we KCO'd that, and it ended up being a plus 27, which is what I showed down there. Then combine your like terms and put it all together. So if you got this wrong, maybe double check your answer for that second equation before you check the answer. And this should have been your answer for that second equation, or expression. So you should have gotten negative 25b plus negative 20. You could have also written negative 25b minus 20. If you have any questions about any of these problems, please send me an email. Otherwise, you can get started on your homework. So we are on page 84, 85 today in your textbook. And I want you to do problems 15 through 25.